Okay, this is just a melodramatic scene here, some kind of provocative situation in a circus. It's called Battling Buffoons. Well, your first thought is, this encapsulates lechery. Well, yeah, there is a licentious quality to this, but it's so silly. How lecherous can something this silly be? How sexually provocative can something this ridiculous be? Okay, here we've got a scene of a zouave. A French zouave is talking to a little young nude girl trying to be an artist. Now this is lechery. This is just licentious as it can be. Now, zouaves were French colonial troops in the 1870s, right after the First World War. And they lived a very, very crude life. They were brothel mongers, hung out in bars and brothels and frequented prostitutes. They were a very low-grade bunch of people. Vincent van Gogh hung out with zouaves. He's got a number of paintings of himself with zouaves. He thought they were really the hip dudes to pack around with. The zouaves were colonial troops that later formed the early regiments, the Seminole regiments of the French soldiers that went to Indochina. And they had a habit of cutting the ears off the dead for trophies. And you think, well, the zouaves, the Germans in the Franco-Prussian War and the First World War hated to fight the zouaves, so they figured they were going to get their ears cut off. Now here's Vincent van Gogh has lost an ear, and he's running around with zouaves. Okay, this is a statement on evil beatniks. This is the theme of girls and food. This is a recurring theme. Males tend to judge flavor by shape. This one is really big with the Latinos. Okay, here's some, this is an infirm person with some mental problems. His desire can burn holes through boilerplate. Okay, this thing is, how would I defend something like this? It's indefensible. Art critics have said that Williams is indefensible. Well, this is indefensible, It's just a bunch of energy and anxieties and stuff. Okay, this is a picture of going into the future. How wild things are going to be in the future, This show was in the Helter Skelter show in 1992. One of the biggest art shows in West Coast history. In my opinion, there was 3 really famous art shows on the West Coast, real important art shows. The first one was the 1915 Pacific Exposition right over here in San Francisco, 1915. That's when they brought Impressionism from the East Coast, although Impressionism was actually 40 years old. But it was like a wild thing on the West Coast in 1950. The second show, I think, was probably one of the most important shows on the West Coast. It was 1966, was the Ed Keenholz show at the LA County Art Museum, when he had profanity and he had people in the backseat dodge, and that was really a mind expander. And as I said earlier, I think the third really important show was Paul Schimmel's Helter Skelter show at MoCA, which really turned a lot of people's heads around. There's over 100 write-ups, or 150 write-ups in newspapers all over the country cutting down the Helter Skelter show, saying how terrible it was. They said the very nadir, the worst of all the artists, was this guy named Robert Williams. There's only one newspaper in the United States come to the defense of the Helter Skelter show. That was the Washington Post, who said it was a wonderful experience to go through a major art show and feel like you're walking through a Zap comic. No one to this day has looked through that Helter Skelter show and gone through the catalog and realized that was the first major art exhibition in the United States history that more than the majority of the stuff was cartoon oriented. Well, I've gotten a lot of trouble with this one. And I've had to answer to religious people in this thing here. And you think, well, how would you defend yourself with such blasphemy? This is open blasphemy. You know, I've got a roadside club, a honky-tonk called the Deuteronomy Bar, Deuteronomy Lounge, and I got Jesus and drag, and it's just, there's no way to defend this. Well, a religious group confronted me on this picture one time, and I said, well, look at it like this. If Jesus was alive today, do you think he would want to be represented like your logo is a naked man nailed to lumber? Now this is just, you know, there's nothing really wrong with this, and this is just kind of bohemian and kind of goofy, you know. This is an artist. It's called a decorator general. He's got the sensitivities that exceed mine.